Something happened at the 2025 Munich Security Conference that almost no one is talking about. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a protest. It wasn't even a headline. It was worse. For the first time in modern history, European leaders walked out quietly asking the same question: can we still trust the United States? When US Vice President J.D. Vance signaled that Europe may no longer be treated as a core ally, but as a strategic competitor, it didn't just rattle the room. It signaled a shift. And if you think this is just another election cycle drama, stay with me, because what's unfolding is much deeper. The room felt different. For decades, Munich was predictable. It was the annual ritual of reassurance. America stood shoulder to shoulder with Europe. The message was simple. We defend the same order. We face the same enemies. We stand together. Munich wasn't just a conference. It was a reaffirmation of the post-World War II system. NATO unity, coordinated sanctions, shared deterrence. But what about the just concluded 2026 Munich Security Conference? European officials described the mood with one word: rupture. Even Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney recently suggested that the old assumptions about American leadership may no longer apply. The conference's own language referred to a potential wrecking ball approach to the international architecture the US itself built. That is not normal diplomatic rhetoric. That is strategic anxiety. So what changed? French President Emmanuel Macron may have framed it most clearly. He called this period Europe's Greenland moment. Why Greenland? Because the mere idea that Washington might pursue Greenland in a unilateral, transactional way, regardless of European consensus, symbolizes something bigger. To Macron, it suggests that the United States no longer instinctively treats Europe as a partner to consult, but as a variable to negotiate over. He has described the current posture as openly anti-European. That's not diplomatic language. That's alarm language. And from Europe's perspective, there are two simultaneous crises unfolding. The double crisis first: economics. Macron describes a Chinese tsunami. Electric vehicles, solar panels, industrial supply chains. European manufacturing is under intense pressure from Beijing scale and state-backed coordination. Second, instability from Washington. For 70 years, unpredictability came from Moscow. Now European leaders speak openly about minute-by-minute instability from the United States. Even when Secretary of State Marco Rubio offers reassuring rhetoric, European officials privately admit something extraordinary. They no longer view the United States as predictable. And in geopolitics, unpredictability is destabilizing. But here's the real question: is this temporary? Or is this structural? Is this just one administration? If this is about one president, Europe can wait it out. If it's structural, if America itself has changed, then Europe has a generational problem. Over the last 20 years, US strategy has shifted in ways that go far beyond personalities. Free trade has given way to tariffs and industrial policy. Globalization has given way to supply chain nationalism. Democracy promotion has become selective. Alliance burden sharing is no longer requested, it's demanded. These shifts reflect domestic political realities inside the United States. Voters across the spectrum are more skeptical of foreign wars, more skeptical of open-ended trade exposure, more focused on domestic resilience. That doesn't disappear with one election. Europe understands this. But layered on top of these structural shifts are policies that feel more transactional and personal. The Greenland pursuit, pressuring Ukraine toward concessions, leveraging foreign policy relationships for commercial advantage, whether in energy markets or platforms like TikTok. Those moves feel less systemic and more individual. And they face domestic resistance inside the US, which leaves Europe trying to calculate three things: what's permanent, what's temporary, and how exposed are we? Can Europe actually go its own way? This is where rhetoric meets reality. Europe talks about strategic autonomy. But autonomy requires capability, and capability requires scale. On Ukraine, Europe has stepped up significantly. In many areas, it now carries a larger share of financial and military support. But three major vulnerabilities remain. The first is technology in artificial intelligence and advanced computing. Europe lacks the capital concentration and unified strategy to compete with either Washington or Beijing. That means even if political trust declines, Europe remains deeply dependent on American technology infrastructure. And reliance on Chinese alternatives presents security risks most European governments are unwilling to accept. Strategic autonomy sounds powerful. Technological dependence makes it complicated. The second major vulnerability is Russia. Despite increased defense spending, Europe has not yet built a fully credible independent deterrent against the Kremlin. There is quiet concern that a ceasefire on Moscow's terms could allow Russia to rearm and test NATO's eastern flank. And here's the uncomfortable question few ask publicly. If that happens, will Washington respond the way it once would have? That uncertainty changes calculations in Berlin, Paris, Warsaw, and beyond. And the third and final major vulnerability is internal fragility. The European Union itself faces political stress. The upcoming French presidential election could be existential for the bloc. A far-right, Eurosceptic, or overtly pro-Russian victory could stall EU integration, budget coordination, and defense cohesion overnight. Without France, the EU's political engine weakens dramatically. So Europe isn't navigating just one storm. It's navigating three: Chinese economic pressure, Russian military threat, American unpredictability. So is the alliance over? No, but it is changing. Trust, once assumed, is now conditional. The transatlantic relationship may continue, but on a new baseline. Less values-driven, more interest-driven, less sentimental, more transactional. And here's the paradox. Despite everything, the anxiety, the rhetoric, the uncertainty, European leaders still overwhelmingly prefer alignment with Washington over alignment with Beijing. The American orbit, even in a colder, more transactional form, still feels safer than a Chinese-centered global order. That gives the United States leverage. But leverage is not the same thing as loyalty. Besides, the Europeans may be thinking that this is a temporary phase which will disappear in 3 years when Trump is gone. Final thoughts? The Munich Security Conference used to symbolize unity. This year, in 2026, it symbolized uncertainty. The question is no longer whether the transatlantic relationship is changing. It is. The real question is whether we are witnessing a temporary disruption, or the beginning of a world where alliances are no longer sacred, only strategic. Because if that's true, Munich wasn't just another conference. It was a warning.